Hey guys, what's up? It's Amia, and I'm back with Terms and Tea, a segment where I dissect words I'm going to talk about in this week's podcast episode. And this week's podcast episode is called Taxes and To-Go Cups, where I tell you where our taxes are really going and what they're really funding. And just like the title says, this is Terms and Tea, and today's tea is from Scooter's Coffee, and it's an iced matcha strawberry latte with a little bit of cold foam on top. And I'm going to do a little taste test for you guys. Okay, the matcha has a really good flavor. You could definitely taste it over the strawberry flavoring, which doesn't always happen. And the strawberry flavoring is really good. It does taste like real strawberries. And the sweetness is not too sweet, but it's also not too bland, which is something that a lot of people struggle with when it comes to matchas. And they also kept the matcha flavoring itself intact, so I really like that. And the cold foam on top is really good as well. So I'm going to rate this a 8 out of 10. Now let's get into sipping on terms and tea, because if we're gonna pay taxes, shouldn't we know what they're being used for? Okay, so our first term, which is really two terms that I'm putting together, but they kind of coincide together because you can't have, the only reason that one is distinct is because there's the other. So the terms are federal taxes and state taxes, two different things. State taxes are taxes that go to your state, your specific state. I live in Florida, so my state taxes are Florida taxes. Federal taxes are the entire country taxes. So when you ever see the word federal, it's dealing with the entire country. So you have state laws and you have federal laws. Federal laws are laws that pertain to the whole country. State laws are laws in your state. State taxes pay for things like your schools, your roads, and any damages like potholes not being fixed, if there's trees, scenery stuff, things that happen specifically in your state that need to be fixed. If that makes sense, things that are going on in your specific state, because federal taxes wouldn't pay for your public schools in your state if your state taxes can just take care of that. Federal taxes are a little bit more serious, a little bit more bigger. That's where we pay for our Social Security. That's where we pay for the military, and whatever Congress happens to be arguing about that week. That's where federal taxes go. They go to bigger things, bigger subjects. It's a bigger budget, so it goes towards bigger things. All right, our second term is discretionary spending. Discretionary spending is kind of self-explanatory if you know what the word discretion means. So it's kind of up to their discretion. That's Congress's money to talk about, and they get to decide on what they're gonna do with that money. It's up to their discretion. Discretionary spending, and they just get amount of discretionary money to spend each year. They could talk about defense, they could talk about education, housing. This is kind of the real budget tea, because this is something that can be voted upon and changed each year. And they can either try to put the money towards funding student loans or stockpile missiles. And that's why it's such a big topic within the government. Our third term is mandatory spending. Now, this is a non-negotiable bag. They have to spend this on certain things like Social Security and Medicare. Those are already promised. So over half of this budget is already promised. So it's not really something that they can really sit and vote upon and decide, because it's something that's already stated. You have to spend a certain amount of this money on these things. So it's not that big of drama, because it's not really something that we can be hey, we don't really want that, which I'm sure that it could change possibly, but since it's so tied up in the fact that they have to spend this money, it'd be very hard for that to ever change drastically with mandatory spending, because Uncle Sam said I got bills and they got to be paid. So our Medicare and our Social Security comes from mandatory spending, and there's other things too, but those are just the bigger things that are in that budget. Okay, our fourth term is tax brackets. Tax brackets is basically classes that they put you in based off how much money you make. And the U.S. uses a progressive tax system, which means that we are taxed in layers and not all at once. So if you move up a tax bracket, only the money from that specific tax bracket gets taxed, and not the whole paycheck or all of your money. So for example, if one bracket is $50K and another bracket is $51K, only that extra $1K gets taxed in the $51K tax bracket. The rest of the $50K gets taxed in the $50K bracket. So getting a raise won't drastically change how you get taxed. Only the money that you just got boosted up gets taxed. So it won't kill your check at all. It'll just help you build your bag slowly, but surely your bag's getting built. So just think of it like that. If you get paid 51K, 50 of that will get taxed in the 50 K, and the 1K only gets taxed in the 51K, if that makes sense. Okay, our fifth and final term is, I think, the messiest term out of all these terms when it comes to the government and taxes, which is the budget deficit. And the budget deficit is basically when the government spends more money than it collected in taxes that year. So think of it as someone making $2,000 a month, but they spent $3,000 a month, and they do this every month. And the shortfall of this goes to the national debt. And so think of the national debt as the government's credit card bill. And guess who helps them pay that credit card bill? Us, when we pay taxes. It's like watching somebody max out their credit card, but we have to pay it. Now that you've got the tax tea, don't let anybody play in your fiscal face. See the full episode this week on Legislations and Lattes, link in bio. Bye.